Hello and a big warm welcome to you. Today I want to do a Facebook Live about a scene in The Matrix. So I rewatched The Matrix last night. I'm not sure if I've watched it since 1999. I'd forgotten how violent it was, but anyway, I was hiding, blowing my eyes for a lot of the time. Anyway, what I had a big aha, and I know there are so many multi-layers, multi-levels, meanings and ways that we can interpret all of the different elements in the Matrix. But what I'd love to do is share an experience that I had. So there's a spoiler alert. Hi, Carolee. Hi, Tracy K. Spoiler alert. There's a moment, and if you've got children there, you might want to have headphones. I'm not going to be talking about anything. I'm going to be talking about things that you may not want younger children to hear. So I'm not going to talk about really gory things, but just I know if my children were younger, I wouldn't be wanting them to hear some of these things. So there's I don't know if you remember or if you've watched it recently, but there's the point near the end of the movie where he gets killed and Trinity expresses her love for him. She's like, I'm in love with you, and she kisses him and he comes back to life. Now, to me, this really mirrors the journey that I've been on in my own internal dialogue world and my own self-relationship journey. First step is love. It's love, it's compassion, it's divine love. You know, interesting that she's called Trinity. And then he comes back to life, and at that moment he goes back into he's in the Matrix, and he turns around and he just really clearly says no. Lucy, welcome. So as I was saying, if you've got young children there, I would recommend headphones. He says no, and what I love about that, to me, is a really clear manifestation of loving limits. You know, my experience with loving limits is it's just a no. It's an absolute clear, aligned no. And I think he puts his hand up, and there are bullets coming towards him, and the bullets actually stop, and he picks one up and he looks at it, and at that moment he's seen through the Matrix, and they all drop to the floor, and then all the code becomes available. Now, my big aha at that moment was that's the journey that my experience has been with inner dialogue. That as I've developed my own internal self-compassion, which means come a lot through my inner loving mother, but before that was through self-empathy, through learning to say the things to myself that I was aiming to say to my children. I'm right here with you. I'm listening. I love you. To pour in compassion. And the more I poured in that, the less willingness there was for me to listen to. And it was really interesting for me, because if you've ever seen me talk about this, where I set loving limits, if there's ever any judgment coming in now, I actually do. It's kind of very similar to what he actually did. It's like, I put my hand up there because that's where they come in for me, and I just say no. I'm not willing to believe that. And I remember a few days ago, I was looking in the mirror and I was wearing something I didn't particularly enjoy, and an old thought came in that 5 years ago I would have absolutely entertained, and 20 years ago I would have been living in that whole experience. And for me, they were like bullets. They're like, I could talk about emotional sticks, but they're like emotional bullets as well. There would be, it was some kind of, you look really, it would be some kind of harsh, ugly, this, that, the other. You think of all the judgmental terms you can think of, and it came in more than I've heard one for a long time. And I was like, wow, that is what I used to be continually accepting. I was continually believing those, and it was kind of like, wow, that was how I used to live. That was the kind of the bullet world, the emotional stick world that I used to live in. And I was like, absolutely, there's just no way, absolutely no way. I'm absolutely unwilling. I'm going to turn my phone off. There's the call. I'm absolutely unwilling to I just don't believe in that. I don't believe in it anymore. And that was the parallel I saw with Neo. It's just no. It's just a no. It's not an angry no anymore. At some point, I think it can be really helpful to have an angry no, or I don't call it angry, I call it rage. But now it's just a really clear no. I'm really not willing to entertain that. It's not true. It's basically not true. And that was what, again, I saw with that piece there. It's just a no. And to see the reality of what it is, and the way I see these things, judgments, particularly self-judgments, they're things we internalize from the culture around us. And yes, of course, there's often inner work we need to do to listen, to the childhood experiences and how painful it was to receive those. Absolutely. I totally honor that process. And at some point there comes this realization that it's almost like they're like bullets or thought forms or, memes in the old version of the word meme. Before we had memes on Facebook and Instagram. I often talk about a menu of consciousness. It's like a menu, and it's basically saying, okay, there are all these thought forms going through it. Am I going to take it on? Am I going to accept it? Am I going to believe it to be true? And I'm so grateful to be now in the place where, and I do want to say that there are probably, and I do notice sometimes, really older ones that I'm still working with, but in terms of the absolute conscious, my inner conscious dialogue has absolutely, there's just no entertainment. It's just a no. It's a really clear no. And I really want to share, hi, Kelly, that, if you'd known me 20 years ago, you would have believed that, I would have believed that to be impossible, because if you'd have heard my inner dialogue, it was full of self-judgment. Every thought I thought, every probably second thought I thought would have been one of self-judgment. So hi, lovely. So it really is possible to change that inner dialogue. And I think it's what I loved about the Matrix is this combination. It's love and it's the limit. It's a loving limit. It's the divine marriage between love and will, and coming to a point, at some point, we just absolutely just not willing to do it anymore. And it almost becomes not a, for me, it's just like a no. It's just like a no. And sometimes I think earlier in the journey it needs to be a stronger no, because we it's like no. But my experience now is it's absolute just a no. It's a really clear no. And then the whole of reality does change, and the whole consciousness really changes, because it becomes about love. And these bullets, they fall to the ground. They're with a no, they fall to the ground. And the next piece in it, where he then he runs to what is it, the agent? I can't even remember what they're called. And he runs in through him, and then the agent kind of disappears. And in terms of, if I'm thinking of that, in terms of this meaning that I'm talking about, these are judgments that we live in a world that lives in these bullets. It's, we still are yet to learn as a culture about love and limits. And, when we're getting those bullets, I think it becomes increasingly, the way I see it, is to run into that person, the person that's judging. And, I'm so grateful to MVC for this, to actually then to see that within that there is, again, it's the same for each person. Any person's judgment generally comes from their own internalized judgments, their own unmet needs, their own pain, and then it all starts to dissolve. And I'm still more on the journey with that, with hearing other people's judgments. But yeah, I really wanted to share because it was such a clear thing for me, and love to hear if you have a different interpretation. I think there are so many interpretations that each person has. And after watching it last night, I was looking back, because I remember at the time, a few years later, I watched Ken Wilber, who used to be really into, he did hours and hours of interviewing with the Wachowski brothers about all the multi-leveled meanings in the Matrix, and so multi-leveled ones. And the Wachowski, well, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Wachowski brothers said that they deliberately didn't talk a lot about the meanings that they made of it because they really wanted each individual to find their own meaning. So I really, if you haven't watched it recently or ever, there is a lot of violence, so you might not want to watch it, but in terms of the deeper themes that are there, so I found it so profound. Hi, Jackie. Welcome, welcome. So anyway, yeah, I'd love to hear your thought, but really, that's what I'd really, I'd love to invite you, that possibility of the love and the clear no. And yeah, I'd love to hear your experience too. You know, mine is that sense of those thought forms, those judgments. They do come in from over here, and it is a no. And then there is that sense of they drop to the floor, and they can't exist without our yes. If we have a no, that reality drops away. Hi there, lovely. Lovely to see you. So thank you for watching, and I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. If you have any ideas for other Facebook Lives, I'm doing one every day. That's my commitment to myself and to you and to life. So I will see you tomorrow. Lots of love. Thank you for watching. Bye.